When I came out from the Omega Vault, I simply pushed a floating stasis cell, holding the dead body of Primarch Vulcan. This was bad, as the guy was a proven immortal, able to heal near instantly even from decapitation, and it only took him a bit longer if he completely disintegrated. I also remembered he was killed this way once, and then he resurrected somehow. But I also doubted it was as simple this time. Even Perpetuals had a limit and Vulcan had reached his. Possibly the Cabal continued their plot and found another Perpetual to kill Vulcan for them. As for the glass spike, it felt like mortal danger even to my blank soul. And yet, it was a weapon able to kill immortals. I will need it. Waiting for me were the Lord Inquisitor Carmelus and the Watch Commander Mordigale, looking positively impressed at my solemn dirge. Dirge. It was a synonym for lament too. Maybe eulogy? Or elegy? Too macabre maybe. But I was still pushing a coffin. The least dangerous secret I obtained in the vault, to be fair. Brother, you are the foremost expert in resurrections. Sanguinius himself seemed just as dead on bail. I was still a sergeant then. The Blood Angel murmured with a slightly hopeful voice. Sure, expect another miracle. Such a sad truth. Maybe it was better if the last vault stayed locked forever. The Primarch is truly dead. The stasis cell prevents decay, but only that. The Inquisitor decided with an expert eye. Click. The coffin vanished inside my tesseract. I chose to show you the truth. If it comes out, both of you will die. I spoke softly, not even trying to force my voice. Death is not the end, not for Primarchs. I'm sure you find a way. Captain Mordigale spoke gently and patted my shoulder for encouragement. I just nodded. I know two ways. A Halo device or the Ynnari Eldar. Their new god owes me a small favor for killing Slanch for him. Do not dare, Lancefire. Never those accursed Halo devices. If they work, what comes out will not be a Primarch. The Inquisitor shouted at me with a blast of psyker energy. I let the hate pass over me and just smiled kindly. Ivrain then. Buying her services will be expensive. Maybe a crone sword or something of that kind. I hummed to myself, still sad the Emperor had confiscated my custom Halo fork. The Lord Inquisitor narrowed her eyes at me. I think you're personally the most hated creature by the Eldar, bar none. Let the Inquisition deal with this. She proposed in a cold, but logical voice. And how would you do that, without divulging the truth to more people? Not to mention, Vulcan didn't end up like this by enemy action. The Cabal has hundreds of Inquisitors in their midst. I've killed a dozen of them myself. I asked in a low voice, while walking into the outer perimeter filled with defense turrets and dozens of Deathwatch brothers eager for news. I smiled when I saw the Forge Master and took out Canis to meet him properly. Look, Canis. A talking wolf. Harl_Greyweaver laughed sonorously, then held filling the hallway with a pretty accurate wolf greeting. Woo. Ooh. Canis howled in return, and then ran forward and headbutted the old space wolf in his chest. Hello, wolf. In a manner of speaking. Good wolf. We must hunt together one day. The bearded Iron Priest demanded in a voice far too loud. Want to see a new STC device? I asked instead, hinting at being gifted a mechanical miracle by the Omega Vault. The Iron Priest stared at my shoulder, noticing the Machina_Opus symbol. I had recovered so many STCs, for so many Forge worlds, that I could cover my entire Terminator plate in cog sigils. One was enough though. Really? From the vault itself? The man asked in disbelief. Maybe all these dead Tyrannid bioships outside had something to do with it. I answered with a modest shrug. The vault contains STCs. Another tech marine rushed to ask, sounding eager and excited. I read his bio on my implant, while I considered a response. If you're searching for a cure for your sick chapter master sleeping on Sacris, brother Mac_Z_Ven, then know only the blankness is the true salvation against chaos infection. Tyrannid tyrant blood can sometimes evoke a reaction to transform the sick one into a pariah, immune to chaos by default. Ha! I could fake being wise and knowledgeable too. It may also work, like it did for the Sons of Dawn. My chapter master, Tyrannid tyrants? The tech marine muttered in a confused tone, and walked away in a daze. Does that actually work, on regular marines? The forge master asked as we walked towards his forge. Oh, he was asking for a friend. It works on some. The Canis Helix gene shouldn't be a problem. But your space wolves already received 100 blank marines from my own progeny. None of the blanks turned wolfen. I explained patiently as I took out a shield crest, then extended my implant-controlled mechadendrite to interface with it and power it up. The weave shield lit up with a blue tinge in the air. A personal shield? Doesn't smell Xenos either. The Forge Master Space Wolf detected with his keen senses. Pre-heresy tech. Founded on a demiurge ship. They had other ancient things, including the STC for iron weapons. Machine Forge is already making better iron guns than the Tau, if not too many. I added with a wry smile. Thus the Machina Opus. A glorious discovery, Chapter Master Lancefire. He congratulated me with a hearty tap on the shoulder that shook my Terminator plate for a second. This whole universe was full of monsters. You will get 489 new tech marines here, Brother Harl. They are all my sons, so I hope you'll take care of them. Or Canis will eat your legs, I promised with a kind voice, while Canis simply grinned. Then we vanished. A second later, I collected all my Astartes and brought them into the accelerated time. Astartes. I have returned with good news. The Omega Vault opened for me. Vulcan's coffin appeared in front of me. A few newer Primaris even cursed out loud. Yes, they killed Vulcan. Deader than dead. With such an evil method that it may also kill the Emperor if he tried to resurrect him. In fact, I believe that was their plan. The Cabal contains other Perpetuals, Farseers, Inquisitors and many others from Xenos species or traitors to humankind, including Word-bearers and their Blessed Lady. I explained while the librarians and apothecaries made a circle around the coffin. Can you fix this, Father? Menelao asked in a pleading voice. I could sense the pain in him. I have a plan. Half of a plan. I will need many of you to join the Death Watch. And investigate. Find out who, when, why and how. Join Inquisitor retinues. Join rogue traders in their travels. Scour alien worlds with your kill teams. Speak to your Obsidian tag, and the information will reach me, at least in the Eastern Fringe. The Obsidian auguries will provide hidden support as well. Buy informants, eat their brains, whatever you have to. We will find them, I demanded in a grieving voice. And they shall know fear. My sons chanted in a giant chorus. Perhaps only the firstborn and some tech marines should induct in the Death Watch. We will have a perfect reason to recruit new Primaris instead. Law mused to himself, and reciting the line I sent him by implant. There are 511 firstborn among you. I observed in a calm voice. Then, 489 tech marines. It will make a full 1,000. Menelao proposed on his own. They'll need a few apothecaries. Wounded people talk more under drugs, I said softly. The apothecaries snickered among themselves, then turned grave again at the dead visage of the Primarch. You are not our Primarch, Vulcan. But you are slain by treachery and we will avenge you. Law recited my own poem, and nodded towards me. And try to bring him back somehow. No sacrifice is too great, no treachery too small. I answered in a determined voice. For we are Lancefires, and we are what they fear. We chanted over the dead Primarchs staring with dead red eyes back at us. Every chapter should have a deep, dark secret. Now I had mine. And whole 1,000 of super-powered Death Watch Avengers, watching for a dead Primarch. I'm sure Vulcan won't mind if I use his gene seed for a few Avenger chapters, while the Crusade fleet is returning to the Machine Forge, My Astartes and I are working hard inside the Tesseract's time field to produce more of everything. More recruits, fucking duty, educating the kids, by blank battle sisters mostly, gene seed implantation apothecaries, more power armor and shields, tech marines, then warding the machine spirits with hexagrammic wards, texorcists. The last 2 weeks felt like thousands of years, I swear. Luckily, I did have large stores of captured/looted/found Astartes armory equipment, so the technical work was only half as bad as it sounds. Upgrading one armor is quite different from having to forge it from bare metal. Many chaos-sourced items could also be recovered and sanctified with some effort, or simply sent to burn into a nearby sun, if they tried to curse me back. Much the same with weapons, as most of my sons preferred to have a combi bolter as their primary weapon, be it Volkite bolter, melter bolter or iron bolter. For melee, we kept it simple. Phase blades. I haven't found any enemy that could withstand those crazy swords, not even Tyrannid Biotitans or Necron Lords. They also worked just fine on orcs, Chaos Lords or demons. I did find a nice trick to share with my sons. By installing a motor piston on the back of my glove, it could wave the phase blade side to side at 100 times per second, basically creating a murder zone in front of my hand. When I showed it to Joeton, he said it was all cheating and no skill. Just like a chain blade. But more dangerous. I answered with a shrug. A chain blade could be parried, after all. Phase blades, only avoided. I even thought to induce a randomizer beat, to create a more uncertain path for the blurring blade to take. But it would be also introducing some uncertainty with hitting the target, so no. One could simply rotate his hand or extend the elbow a little to create a variable. Did I use 3 parallel blades for my boss-level phase claw? You bet I did. I even named it Wolverine Pattern Vibro Claw. Canis still had me beat with his 4 phase claws per paw, and was not shy to announce his triumph with a dismissing snort at my fewer claws, but he didn't vibrate, so there. I still win. While the first Avengers chapter obviously had the Vulcan gene seed, they were not black-skinned nor red-eyed. They were instead far larger and stronger than my other Primaris blanks, and had to be careful in sparring as to not break too many bones. I had them spar with Tyrannids after a few mishaps anyways. Gentle giants my ass. For the rest, I still continued with Khan's gene seed, as it was the most plentiful I had after I drained a lot, while I had the good Primarch in custody. Medical reasons, of course. The other chapters continued with classical saw names for the chapter's name, like Aster, Black, Blood and so on. The Khan's gene seed provided them with much faster reflexes and melee ability, which paired with phase blades made them especially dangerous, even among other Primaris Marines. When I arrived at the Machine Forge, there were 42 new Primaris chapters awaiting their transport ships to depart on crusades. I mean 40 will depart, while newest 2 will remain to complete training and form a reserve force, just in case. This universe was rather dangerous. Lord Lancefire, you want me to provide equipment for 42 new Astartes chapters? Fabricator Gemma growled at me in a not too kind tone. It would be a bit much, even for a large forge world. Of course not. They have power armor and weapons already. Anyways, 40 blank chapters will depart for nearby forge worlds, to receive ships and tanks and whatever else. I'm not ashamed to call in favors from my dear Mechonicus friends. I answered with a smaller voice. A fabricator could be intimidating, especially while riding on top of your naked body. Not ashamed, he says. My lovely android sex doctor grumbled while milking my gene seed with her Mechonicus vitae womb. Absolutely not ashamed. I confirmed with a powerful burst. We have received the first transport from Forge Goth. Tanks and sentinels, for the auxilia, she continued as I rose to my feet and she assembled my Terminator plate with rapidly moving tentacles. What about my knights? I asked, curious. They did suffer lots of damage in the Stygius Crusade, and new knight hulls were being produced by Speranza every day. Your knight house has 800 battle-ready divine walkers, and 400 still into repairs. As you demanded, I prioritized burst cannons as their primary weapon, and the new weave shields to replace the iron version. Twin iron beamers for secondary weapons. Hyperios missiles and multi-lasers for air defense. I nodded, as I expected something like this. Knights were amazing, but also complicated and expensive. You couldn't churn out millions of them, even if you had metal and knight-able pilots. Any progress with the portable Vulcan_Mega Bolter? My infantry could use a cheaper weapon instead of crack missiles. I asked with a not-too-hopeful voice. The fabricator patted my shoulder with an iron palm. Only the new Invictor_Tactical_Warsuit or other Dreadnought models can withstand such a recoil. They are not called Titan-class weapons just because it sounds cool, like you say. She warned me politely. My Terminator plate wasn't even dented. I sighed inward, and thought of possible different chassis. Maybe a Tauros car, or a resilient bike? There will be a reckoning to come with these silly Invictor walkers produced by Cowl. I may even strangle the damn tech priest, with his own innards. Unless we build the car frame from adamantium, it would shake itself apart, O wise revelator of the Omniscia. The Primaris_Outrider bikes should be durable enough for a single-barrel semi-automatic mega bolter. Maybe you can ask Primarch Khan for his Sojutsu_pattern_void bike? The fabricator asked me with no ulterior purpose. I'll get you a STC template for the Vulcan Outrider. Speranza should have something like this hidden away, I said with a grin. Even if it didn't, I could make one in a day. I had a timely cheat in my hands. And build myself a better Invictor as well. The armed Dreadnought Warsuit was a great idea, expanding on my own armed Sentinel, but for Primaris Astartes. However, the implementation showed his real Mechonicus roots. The cope cage didn't make me the least happier. It was like offering a ready-to-eat meal to any Tyrannid that got close and a perfect target for anyone with a ranged weapon. Exactly like the stupid Penitent_engine and the mortifier of the Adepto Mini Storum, if you looked at it with one eye closed. I felt like Sisyphus holding the sky on my back, trying to raise the Imperium from the mire of their religious stupidity. Even the Grey_Knights_Nemesis_Dreadknight dangled the limbs out for a snack for any hungry enemy, instead of protecting the pilot behind Knight-class adamantium armor. With a small wave, I vanished from the forge and went to visit Speranza. Pef Lancefire. You survived again. Even from the deadly plague of the Omega Vault. The ancient machine spirit observed cogently. Wait. What plague? I asked, a bit wary. The last truth, or the Omega weapon, as the Federation called it. Anyone not human would die gruesomely if they trespassed into a Federation installation. You still carry the inactive synthetic pathogen in your lungs. Speranza explained patiently, and projected a magnified nano-organism on its hololith screen. Dormant for now, but... They had nanites? I realized with a shiver of doom on my spine. I could have been eaten from inside out, not even knowing when my flesh was turned into soup. I'll be damned. Maybe my luck was greater than I thought. Can you take it over? I asked with a wide smile. There will be tests to be made, Tyrannids first, then Orcs, maybe even Necrons. Already did, young man. I do need my own defenses, after all. So, what else did you steal? Speranza asked in a confident voice. I waved my hands like a magician, and produced the loot, in order. Alpha Psychers? You may need spare batteries for your Psi Titan. Speranza noticed wisely. I knew it would see the situation my way. Necron artifacts, can you use them? The machine spirit asked, curious. Not very well. I'll ask the Catan for some tips. I explained while storing the dangerous artifacts. Ask Zohulash, not the other one. It fears you for now, but one day it will turn. You realize this, Speranza said in a warning voice. I nodded slowly. I could deal with a single shard, but if it grew ever stronger. So I sent him the data logs about the Eldar God killer weapon. This weapon, I predict you're not the only one with access to this data. It is only a copy, Speranza concluded after doing some super cyber magic on the data log. It comes from the Noctis labyrinth on Mars. Makes sense they only stored a copy on a distant watch fortress. I nodded in agreement. Then I took out the predictor vambrace and watched it lit up like a holy day tree. Sanguinalia, they call it here. A bit more bloody themed as well. A T-engine. What? Never mind, I already read it. A Federation ship, skipping across time to send warnings. Crew must still be alive. Speranza deduced with its superb intelligence. And lastly, I took out the Vulcan coffin, and heard the Speranza groan loudly. You should not have this, Lancefire. The Emperor himself might show up for him. And I expect that's what the Cabal wants. There aren't many ways to kill an immortal. A trap, hidden within another trap. I mused to myself, and stored the stasis cell back. Probable. There aren't many T-skeins able to predict the Emperor, but perhaps it is as you infer, Lancefire. They surely managed to nail him on the Golden Throne until you came around. A Cabal, working in the shadows since the days of the Federation or even longer. They would need perpetuals to maintain cohesion over such a long time span. Future readers to place their agents at the right time and place. Psychers to modify minds, navigators to pilot their ships, and so much more. The AI mind began to infer from my single word. I can't revive him. Even if I could, I shouldn't. The Emperor would know instantly, anywhere in the galaxy. But I know how to clone him. And with clone skeins. I proposed gently. Speranza hummed in deep thought for a minute. You could reduce his warp presence, dial it down to background noise. Enhance his other abilities. Let's say a dozen clones for start. But you do need to help me with this. Primarchs are not normal humans. I asked in a hopeful voice. We'll need more Geller ramparts for this. And a bigger fleet for when Chaos finds out. Or the Cabal, for that matter. Speranza completed my thoughts. I left Speranza with the task of creating the gene crucible needed to clone Primarchs, which was way too advanced for me or my sons. Still based on the Demiurge design for kin cloning crucibles, but the AI had enough knowledge to expand on it with his ancient Genetta expertise. Was Speranza a he? Better get used to it. He was already experimenting with a dead Ironkin body I found on the Nostari ship, perhaps trying to build himself remote robotic helpers. Soon enough, I will have a robot bodyguard like those Mechonicus adepts. Inside the Pharos, Lash and Zorhulash awaited eagerly for me to release the third shard. I think there are 1,000 of your shards scattered around the galaxy, mighty Zorhulash. How do you see this kind of trade work? More wolves? I asked, curious, while holding out a prison pyramid. Lash shifted back to his humanoid form and collected the tesseract from my hand. Well, brother? He asked with a glance at the Catan bound to the wall with living metal chains. Tempting, but no. Already we are being revealed to those close enough to you, Lash. It is better to start integrating. A wider overwatch will help more. Zorhulash decided in a grave voice, then ate the pyramid like a tic-tac. My tesseract? I muttered in surprise. Zorhulash glared at me for some reason, then spat back the pyramid, making it change shape and insert into my glove, copying the design I used for the Thanos glove so long ago. Must have been 5,000 years already, due to time dilation inside the tesseract. You've grown a bit, Pef Lancefire, but not enough. And I don't care about your human muscles. The Catan said with a disappointed voice. Still haven't lost a war. And I have some new weapons, in case things get bad. I answered with a casual shrug. That weapon you seek is called the breath _of the gods. Koenig is simply the name Thildari gave it in fear. But it was made by Catan. The old Catan star god recalled in a grieving voice. Wait. How do you know? I exclaimed in surprise. Did you notice a dimensional shield around that Omega vault? Do you think your encrypted mind implant is in any way secure? Those hex wards might as well be crayon tigers drawn by a child. Only your soul is protected. Lash quipped in an amused yet cruel voice, revealing a hidden side. I mean, I already knew he was sadistic. My Chekhov gun appeared in my hand and fired before I could realize. A dark light beam struck the Catan shard straight into his chest, leaving a burning black hole. Don't test me, Lash. Bad dogs get punished, I shouted in anger, although my heart raced wildly. A warm glow began to emerge from my heart as well. Okay. Don't get angry, young Lancefire. That kinda hurt. Lash grumbled with a subdued voice, although he didn't really seem injured. The gape in his chest closed with flowing metal, leaving him pristine once more. Stop aggravating him, Lash. Don't cry for me when you're locked in a box, Zorhulash demanded in a brotherly, yet callous tone. The Drukari blaster pistol returned to my storage, yet another precious shot wasted. Mostly a calibration shot, to be fair. A Catan wouldn't be killed so easily. I also wasted a shot on Araman, although I deliberately targeted his bird bracelet, hoping to ignore his reflexive teleport. So I only took his right hand out, as the dark matter beam continued through his bracelet and vaporized everything below the elbow. Anyways, I also found some Necron stuff. I needed identified and ready for work. Lord Trazyn might ask for a Catan shard in exchange. If I have to ask him, I continued in a more relaxed tone, and dumped the ancient artifacts onto the floor. A gift of the Flayer. You already know this, Pef Lancefire. Lash spoke a bit more respectful. I nodded. For me, the Nexus Cube is more valuable than the contents. I could empower someone for planetary scale warfare. Shipboarding too. I explained curtly. Even so, the contents could be used to lay waste to an entire Necron crown world. Or perhaps help you besiege a powerful Necron. Like the one down south in the Nephilim sector torturing your fellow humans. He is called Seras, Zorhulash explained patiently. You know the Necrons are millions of years too advanced. Even their weakest weapons outmatch humanity's best. I can only strike them from afar, for any reasonable chance, and even then, it is doubtful. I sighed while focusing my mind through the Pharos on the new battlefield. I thought Ferrus Manus had solved this with Trazyn. Then again, even Trazyn had a boss, and maybe his boss had another boss, not the pariah Nexus again. Armies of Necrons warriors and constructs, even some Triarch_Praetorian, the equivalent of Imperial Custodes. And culling defenseless civilians, or flaying alive anyone who resisted. This was going to be a mess. And I also had important quests to do. So, you see now? The Catan observed with a knowing tone. Not getting involved. No way. I grumbled to myself. The pylon network will suppress the warp, and all psychers or astropaths. Regular humans, they can't shine anymore. Lash added with a grin. Good. They shouldn't shine, feeding the warp with more psychic energy. I want a blank humanity anyways. I muttered with a grimace. Duty or purpose? Damn it. I will have to be smart about this. I knew you were going to fight. It is your nature. The Catan proclaimed in a lazy voice. If you ate the third shard, does it make you stronger? I asked instead. A bit slow, but you finally realized. The Pharos may be a prison, but it also honed my senses. Now I'm maybe half again that strong. Should be possible to conduct a hidden war, setting traps and sabotaging them while they fight your humans. So who do you trust to send in there? Zorhulash asked, possibly meaning one of my sons, or maybe Canis. But I had someone else in mind. She did fine even without me, the first time. Now she will terrify the Necrons. Fine, now hide, I demanded while preparing myself for a long war. Lash hid by transforming into his wolf shape, while Zorhulash simply made the wall cover him once more. There. A perfectly innocent black-walled dungeon. Click. Sister Stern appeared beside me, and looked around curious. "Pef, is this your hidden dungeon where you seduce women and force yourself onto them?" she asked with a wary glance at Lash. So, she had some suspicions as well. I sighed and set up a small table with a galactic table hololith. There is a Necron called Ceres, assaulting the Nephilim sector, and killing billions of people with his armies. He also kidnaps people to perform experiments on them. I explained patiently while retrieving 2 Necron artifacts. A death_shroud and a death_mask. Macabre things, but useful anyways. The galactic sector lit up without my touch, likely the Catan speeding this up. Then I took out the Nexus_arrangement filled with infected flayers, and set it on the table. Lash stepped closer, grinning wolfishly with his foot-long teeth sparkling unnaturally. "Worf," he growled in a decent attempt at saying listen. "This is a Nexus. Kinda like a portable space luggage. It carries a special payload that can infect Necrons with a virus. Lash will teach you how to use it, so just place your hand into his mouth," I said with a tired voice. It would be faster than installing a mind impulse unit and downloading the manual, not that any human device would withstand the kind of energies she threw around in anger. "If he bites me, I'll tear his head off. Just so you know." Stern spoke sternly, making Lash grin wider. A minute later, she opened her eyes and picked up the Necron device with a confident hand. "So that's how you do some of your tricks, dear Pef. Xenos tech. And you married me, which makes you a Lancefire. However, you saw the Golden Throne. The Emperor is also doing this, when humanity's survival is at stake. Now take the other 2, and see if you can use them as well." I answered with a kind voice. "The Emperor will guide my hand." She chanted and began to glow as she worn the death mask and the death shroud, giving her a fierce look. A second later, she began running around at hyperspeed, possibly enjoying the shroud a little too much. As she came to full stop, Lash spat a pike-shaped weapon onto the ground. I picked it up, and had to grin. A rare rod_of_Covenant, slightly reshaped like an imperial relic with a golden Aquila on the pommel, and ending with a 3-meter-long phased blade that could extend twice over at need. I admit I played with it for a second, then handed it over to Stern. "And this will be your backup weapon, for this mission. Do well, and you may even keep it," I offered with a smile. "They shall regret the day they were born," my demonifuge wife proclaimed in a confident voice. "Sure, have your vengeance. Not that the Necrons were born anyways." I hugged Stern for luck, and had the Pharos move her instantly over several galactic sectors, right in the heart of the Necron invasion. "This woman is very dangerous, Pef Lancefire. She could kill anyone here in a single moment of lapse, even yourself. Your blankness isn't strong enough to protect you." Zorhulash warned me as the wall peeled back. "I know. Makes my love life a whole more interesting," I declared with a proud voice. Lash snorted at my foolishness. "You would stick your prehensile impregnator into anything, just for sport." I nodded wisely, then shook my head. This place may be grimdark and full of terrors, but the women were also amazing. Especially the more dangerous ones. And speaking of dangerous, Verlaine_Romaeus Lancefire appeared inside the Pharos, using her own nexus. "Husband dear. I just heard you entered the Omega Vault," she exclaimed in a satisfied voice that promised a dozen torrid nights. "Okay then, you asked for it." I opened my palm dramatically, producing the stasis coffin with Primarch Vulcan corpse. My Inquisitor wife just stared in silence at the corpse, before shifting her eyes on the fulgurite glass shard. A weapon to kill a perpetual, even Vulcan himself. Filled with the might of the God Emperor. She pronounced with a reverent voice, hands forming the Aquila sign by reflex. "Good, you can see past the first trap. Now, extrapolate. What happens when the Emperor learns of this?" I asked, curious. Verlaine glanced around, already thinking how to silence the 2 Xenos present. What if these 2 talk? Zorhulash is not a fool, I answered with a shrug. The prisoner could not escape anyways. The Inquisitor took my words well, as she focused on the fake wolf. Then we must kill him, she proclaimed in a judicial sentence. Wait. There is another way. The mighty Catan spoke from the wall, and somehow extended an arm to impale and drain his other shard. In a single moment, the wolf was gone, absorbed into the main Catan body. The black stone walls trembled for a second, as more energy from deep inside the Pharos was diverted to keep Zorhulash still imprisoned. I will not talk. Even if I'm free. Nothing in this universe is worth making an enemy of Lancefire. Gods have died already at his hand. The Catan promised in a solemn voice. I smiled modestly. It was mostly luck, but that was also one of my powers. On the other hand, I now lacked a pet Catan wolf. What will I do? Ignoring the Catan, Verlaine leaned over and touched the stasis field, with her eyes closed. Minutes later, she stood back and sighed. I can feel the dark pattern again. Can I bring in Ulrich? She asked me with a sad voice. The hollow sun is gone. Exploded in a supernova. And this is not the work of the Subeka dynasty anyways. A cabal of future readers and long-term planners. Xenos and human alike, I said with a grim voice. What would happen if I drew the glass shard out? An explosion? Maybe the soul of the Emperor would be torn in two? The Astronomicon would go dark? All of these, and worse. Probably worse. It could always get worse. Then, Astarte Semnai? He was your Lamentor's captain and Deathwatch as well. She asked about her new bodyguard. Stop it, Verlaine. This isn't something a mere space marine can fix. I have someone far greater looking into this, and they say this goes way back, to the Federation days and beyond. Perpetuals and Farseers, navigators, spies and informants, not to mention Inquisitors and Chaos Marines as well. They even nailed the Emperor on his throne. Poisoned Guilliman and the Lion, and had them stuck in stasis cells just like this. I growled and stored the coffin again. Pef Lancefire is already investigating, Inquisitor. 1,000 of his blank sons joined the Deathwatch at Iriak. The Obsidian Auguries received a new focus, if less detailed. Lancefire ships are already en route to Forge Worlds, each carrying a blank Primaris chapter. And I am here to overwatch. We will find them. The mighty Catan spoke from his wall. Good. Keep me informed. My wife demanded with a raspy voice, then vanished with her nexus, and simply returned to her room to brood. Maybe it's better that Lash is gone. It was a bit fun, living vicariously through a wolf shard. The Catan said in a lighter voice, and sounding a bit more powerful again. Even Catan become mentally deranged after they shatter, right? I worry your other shards will prove even more trouble. I grumbled as I began to disperse melter bombs inside Necron monoliths and various Titan-scale constructs that still withstood Stern's lightnings. Melter bombs helped cripple the delicate insides, but they were only mid-tech weapons. Nova mines? I had so few left. If they are located inside the Pharos N sphere, I can influence them to behave. Mostly. And here, I can reabsorb them easily, like you saw. But, if you go into the halo stars, too far. The Catan muttered in warning. How far can your cosmic fire reach, from here? I asked instead. Maybe using Nova mines could be avoided, if the Catan would help. Still the same rogue trader, I see. About 3 light years right now. Bring me more shards, and the radius will increase. Zorhulash proposed with a rogue trader smirk. Let's loot more Necron dynasties then. I answered with the same smile. Let me find a worthy target for you to crusade. But only after that monster Ceres is dead. The Catan said in a vengeful tone. For once, I was glad he was on my side. After a week of constant back and forth to harass the Necrons, Stern returned to recover, as she was still human, if far better than a normal one. But she brought with her dozens of Necron items, and even an intact tomb_blade jet bike. I chased this thing for hours. So now I want one for myself. The pretty battle sister demanded with an outraged voice. I glanced at the wall with a blank face. There were some things I could not do, immediately. Go and rest on the fortress, and stay with Darcy for a while. I'll figure something out, I said softly, then moved her to her room on the Black Lament. One might think you're being ridden by your woman. Get me a new toy, Lancefire. Zorhulash commented wryly. Let me bring her back, you tell that to her face. I countered with my hand poised in the air for a tesseract transport. She would rip my head off. The Catan realized with a wary voice. I just smiled politely. After seeing what the Necrons were up to in the Nephilim sector, my wife would be a lot more violent with the poor Catan. Time for another trade. I decided on a whim, and located my favorite Necron lord. Hello again, my metal friend. I quipped in fake joy. Figures you'd be back. I even heard of a woman made of lightning destroying entire Necron armies in the Pariah Nexus, where psychopowers shouldn't work at all. Trazyn the Infinite commented dourly. You could be talking about my wife, Ephrael Stern Lancefire. She just returned from her Necron safari with a prize. I answered and transported the tomb blade next to him. The pilot's hands are still here, gripping the controls, but nothing else. She tore him from the seat? The Necron Lord realized with a bit of worry. Must have been a little angry, as it took so long to catch him. And now she wants a fast void bike, just like this. But for humans. I explained patiently, then sent over a normal bike, decorated with Order of the Rose sigils. The Necron stared at the childish human vehicle, then back at the state-of-the-art Necron Wonder bike. I hope it is just one item. Making a working STC for a Mechanicus void bike would take days. He exclaimed in fake horror. Wait a minute. It would take me centuries, if I was lucky. Damn Necron science. Days it is then. But you can start with a prototype from these two. Or else Stern is going to be more upset. And maybe demolish an innocent Necron, by accident. I allowed in a magnanimous voice. Almost merciful. Fine. But she better kill Illuminator Seerers for me. That crazy Cryptek is the one who perfected biotransference. They even dragged me forcefully into the furnace. Trazyn declared in real outrage. I rose my eyes towards Zorhulash, who nodded. It was true then. No wonder Trazyn always acted independently. He was still the same rebel. Why is that Cryptek doing these macabre experiments? And with humans too? I asked, curious. Why else? He had enough of a metal body and wants to return to flesh. But he also makes new technology by studying biological systems. And about new technology, your Horizon engine is ready. I hope that ends my debts. Trazyn demanded in a warning voice. I looked inside the loot stash and sent him over a phylactery that contained numerous repair spiders, just in case he got damaged one day. Wouldn't work on humans anyways. This is for the Void Bike STC. But make one model for me as well. I always wanted to fly in my Terminator plate. I asked shamelessly. Lord Trazyn stared at the flimsy human bike and was about to argue about stupid humans, when I sent over the new Primaris Outrider bike and the Vulcanite_disintegrator I found in the Nostari ship. This was a tank or dreadnought weapon, way too energy draining for my power armor suit. Or maybe we simply didn't have good enough power generators, yet. Some decent human tech this time, Lord Lancefire. I can make something good with these parts. Do you know how to use a targeting nebuloscope? He asked in a tech priest, or maybe mad scientist mode. I can learn. I do have many Necron artifacts in use by now. Good stuff. I declared with a satisfied tone. I would ask if you looted the Omega Vault, but I already intercepted a dozen encrypted transmissions about that, spreading out from the Jericho Reach. Also, news about you having thousands of Catan phase swords for your Astartes. Trazyn commented in an ironic voice. I just sighed. Wasn't this supposed to be a magenta-violet secret? Anyways, I had to give something out. Those Deathwatch guys had a Catan shard locked in a vault. And a bunch of other Necron stuff, like the phylactery you just got. Also had lived Tyranids, who escaped somehow and called an entire Tyrannid fleet to help. Quite a glorious battle, until I arrived to save their ass. I muttered in a less pleased voice. Indeed. I expected something like this. I'll send the STC dataslate to your fabricator lady when is ready, but you can take the 2 finished void bikes. Trazyn spoke as he gestured at the brand new void bikes he just assembled for me and Stern. Took him 5 minutes top. Damn Necron. I mean, I still got ahead, but barely. So I left him another quest. An unarmed Nova mine, still plated in blackstone and ceramite dust. This is not armed. The Necron exclaimed after a second of confusion. Perhaps expecting an attack? Why would I attack a useful ally? I need a few millions Nova mines just like it, or a billion. Tyranids, they never stop coming, I said in a tired voice. Oh. Your Forge world only makes like 20 per year. I understand, must be hard, being a brave human, surrounded by superstitious priests who don't even have N-sphere engineering. How is Canis? He asked randomly. Right. Trazyn had been with us at Alivar when Vashta attacked. Canis is much better. I got him Phase claws. I answered proudly. Not the silly claws, damn human. His soul? The Necron Lord asked with a concerned voice. Getting stronger every day. I said a bit confused. ... I see. Good, good. Tell me when the aura manifests. Damn lucky bastard. Trazyn grumbled for himself, and dropped my dataslate with the Horizon engine into my waiting hands. Oh? Zorhulash wondered out loud. You know something, mighty Zorhulash? I asked warily. It's still only a potential. But this is related to Cadia. Did he eat something in that place? Something soul-charged and powerful or? The Catan asked in a serious voice. I felt my head spin for a second. 2 Chaos Gods died at Cadia. Canis was right at my side, just after the Emperor changed something inside us. I brought Canis out and heard him growl at the impaled Catan. Canis, what is going on inside you? I asked in a worried voice. Woo. Or. My wolf replied while his eyes glowed with golden light for a second. Warm. Good. Maybe I was paranoid? I brought out a giant Tyrannid tyrant, who instantly created a silence in the warp zone inside the Pharos. Oof. Canis howled louder, forcing his glow out like a barrier. By their nature, dogs were faithful and loyal to their human masters, and Canis even wore a working Rosarius shield. His faith must be enormous. He is a living saint. I realized after a few confusing seconds.